folks. So now we've thought about how to approach the aspect of the assignment about the changing semiotics of a brand or issue, let's think about applying semiotics to the way we communicate that. This one probably seems a bit trickier when you initially consider it, but it's really not. I hope this video will convince you of that and get you thinking creatively and uniquely about the presentation part of your assignment.
If your changing brand topic is the what of your assignment, think of your slides and associated spoken commentary as the how. If you think about it, you make semiotic choices all the time when communicating. If we go right back to first year and the communication and language module, there are paradigmatic and syntagmatic choices and associated connotations in all the language we use to communicate. Even something as simple as saying good morning versus saying "'bout ye." And every presentational choice you make in life, even what clothes to put on in the morning, or even what loungewear or jammies to put on when it's one of those days, communicates something semiotically through colours, styles, and the combinations of those things. Exactly the same can be said of PowerPoint slides, if you think about it. So let's go through the concepts one by one and think a wee bit more about how they could apply to presentation slides or to spoken commentary. I'm sure you can think of lots of other ways too. Paradigmatically, try not to settle for bog standard ways of expressing or illustrating things. Is there a fresher way you can explain a point? A different word or phrase rather than an often used cliché? Syntagmatically, can you make your presentation and commentary more than the sum of its parts by making the different elements enhance and complement one another as much as possible? For example, make your visuals work with your text. Decide when one should take centre stage more than the other and when they should do a double act. Given you're providing a commentary too, can you make some of the points on your slides with visuals only? Denotationally, make your meanings clear. Think about whether you could or should use a different word to enhance the clarity of what you're saying. Make your analysis explicit. Avoid using words that carry connotations and implicitly colour what you're presenting. In particular, avoid using words that stereotype, for example, gender, ethnicity, or sexual orientation, whether or not any of these are central to your topic. By extension, avoid reproducing dominant myths unnecessarily, unless you're doing so to make a point that you will then critique or deconstruct if you're being super clever. Think about the connotations of your visuals. Do they work for your topic? Consider amending colour, font and design to work more appropriately. For example, bright yellow slides and Comic Sans font are not going to work for a traditional or high-class brand, or for a sombre issue. I'm being facetious, of course, but you get the idea. Rhetorical tropes are a great way to aid understanding in presentations. Think about the way you learn yourself in lectures. Can you find a good visual metaphor to illustrate a tricky concept? Can you think of an everyday analogy to explain a shift your brand has made? Get the linguistic code right. This is a formal assignment and as such requires standard English. On the other hand, you want to create an engaging context, so your register may, or indeed probably should, be relatively informal. If linguistic or cultural codes are a key part of your presentation, for example, if you're talking about a brand or issue across cultures, make sure you introduce the class sufficiently to the codes involved. Try to bring some variety to bear on your modes of address. Think about what types of address engage you most in class. Address Kelsey and I and your classmates directly at some points in your commentary. I don't mean you have to shout, "Hey Anthea, hey Kelsey, hey classmates" every 30 seconds. You don't even need to use our names at all. But I want to feel as if you're talking to us, just like your audience would want to feel if you were presenting face-to-face in a seminar room. This is all the more important with this remote type of work, because you can't rely on eye contact. Think about using rhetorical questions to make us think about what you're saying. You might even want to leave a little pause after the rhetorical question to make sure we do think about our response. See what I mean? That having been said, you don't have to present the whole thing in direct address. Variety is the spice of life, and you can include some third person speaking or writing as well. Incidentally, I just lost myself a bit of credit there by employing a really overused cliche. Did you notice it? Think also about how your visuals address the audience. Are they engaging, overbearing, too informal, too formal? They're all the more important when we can't see your smiley or serious face alongside them. And finally, intertextuality. Can you make any of your slides or voiceover more interesting by role borrowing from another genre? Or by using specific allusion creatively? Using a phrase people will recognise but slightly amended for your purposes? Think about the way memes do this, for example. You might be wondering about the part of your assignment that asks you to talk about how you've done all of this, because it will all be happening in the slides and commentary at the time you're presenting about your brand or issue. So just put in a slide or two after the stuff about your brand and highlight a few of the ways you applied semiotics to your creation of what went before and talk us through that. So how should I approach giving the class a task to do? This is completely up to you, and you can take it in whichever direction you want to. Remember though that you want it to be interactive. The whole point is to get your classmates to input. So think about the things that make you feel comfortable contributing in class. It's important to know what you're being asked to do, isn't it? So structure your task, giving your classmates something quite specific to do rather than asking them a very vague question. Maybe even structure it so you say, we'll come back to small group X for feedback, then small group Y, and so on, so that people can be ready for when they're going to be called on. Again, this is so much more important this year when we're not in a physical room and can't pick up eye contact or body language that might tell us someone else is ready to speak. There are some really great software tools that help with structuring tasks and encouraging input and interaction. You will have noticed Kelsey and I using a couple of them. Recommendations would be Kahoot, a simple quiz tool, and Mentimeter and Poll Everywhere, more complex functionality to enable polls, open answer questions, and more. You don't have to use any of these. It all depends on fitting the structure of the task to what you want people to do. And so these softwares will be more useful in some cases than others, but they're certainly worth a look. To finish the task point, a really key piece of advice is give it time, as in give your classmates and us time to do whatever you're asking us to do. You know that feeling when a lecturer asks you to do something and then, probably because they're running short on time, they call you back into the larger group after what feels like about 30 seconds. Then you're stressing about what to say because you're not sufficiently prepared. Thankfully, that doesn't happen too often with us lecturers, and you should try to make sure it doesn't happen to your classmates. If you're using a quiz or poll software, make sure you leave enough time, but not too much, for people to input their answers. And if you're doing a more open task, think about how long it's going to take people to do it. You could even try it out on each other. Of course, the flip side of this is that it's crucial to stay within the overall time you've been given, so it's a balancing act. And what about the career part of the assignment? Make of it what you will, but my guidance would be that you can pretty much apply the same types of things I've chatted about here and in the first part of the guidance. There's more obvious stuff to say about how you'll use your semiotic knowledge when creating advertising or marketing campaigns, if that's the type of work you hope to go into. But think about it more broadly too. What can you say semiotically about how you'll present yourself? Your spoken communication, your CV, your LinkedIn profile, any presentational work you have to do, and so on. To use another slightly amended cliche, the list is probably endless. So just have fun with it.
Design, it's quite a personal choice really. It's quite subjective, but you also want to be making sure that it fits with your topic and that it's relevant and appropriate for your topic. So for me, I used to use lots of complex templates that PowerPoint provided. I've gone really, really simple and stripped back in recent times, and I tend to choose just a blank one and do my own thing with it. So I just want to show you a few aspects of that. Some of you will be well aware of how all this functionality works, others may not. So I'm just kind of going on a level to share all of that. So let's open this new PowerPoint presentation here. Now, the first thing to think about is layout. So there's all the different layouts that you can have, and it really depends. For me, I tend to come and go between just completely blank slides and title and content slides, depending whether I just want to have images on it or whether I want to have text on it. The next thing to think about is then creating your own design, because sometimes you might just want to have a really plain white background. That might be the clearest and most appropriate way to present your information or your analysis. For me, I like to give it a bit of colour, and you've probably noticed in reading the brand that I kind of like to brand the slides to keep the slides the same colour, apart from when I'm including an image or whatever, to keep the slides the same color and the text the same color. I think it brings a nice consistency to it, I think. So let us then have a look then at design, which is where we would change the color of our slides. So let's click in there. And then if we click on format background, then we can format the whole thing. We can change the color of the whole thing. So for me, use this nice blue color for it, but you could use anything. Let's use, what will we use? Let's use a nice wee green one like this. Isn't that nice? And then we'll do the same with this one. Nice wee green one there, isn't that lovely? So what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to delete these guys, because the thing about it is you don't want to be going through changing the color of every single slide, because that can be really a bit tricky or a bit time consuming. So, wait until you've got a couple and then duplicate them, and then you'll duplicate the color as well. Okay, so lovely. All right, so then you might want to have text. So if you start, say our wonderful presentation, blah, blah, blah. If I could type, it would be really good. So what you want to be doing there is you want to be thinking about a number of things. You want to be thinking about, do you want it to be black, or would you prefer it to maybe be white? Okay, now I find white very, very sort of a bit full on, so I tend to, if I'm going for white, go for, say, the really, really pale grey, but I mean, it's personal choice. And to be fair, there's not a hell of a lot of contrast there, because that green colour isn't particularly dark, so the white maybe doesn't stand out very much on it, so maybe you are better going darker. So let's go navy. How does that look? Not bad. Let's go even darker navy. So as you can see, right, you mess about with that until you get something that works. So do think about both the appropriateness of the colours for your brand and for the points that you're making, but also the clarity and the ease of viewing for your audience, right? So do think about that in terms of contrast between colours on slides is quite important for people with living with different visual impairments, or living with dyslexia, or different things like that. So make it easy and accessible for people. Right, so you've got that. Then there's all sorts of things you can do. Just like in Word, you can be looking for whatever font you want. You can centralize, you can you know, make it bigger to fit better, you know, and then I would tend to go, well, that would be better down a bit so that it's more central in the slide. When you want to put images in, so there's various ways to do this as well. So one of them is, let's insert an image. You can just do that, you can just insert him, but then what can be quite nice is to not just have him on that background, but to have him as the whole slide, right? So let's just take this slide and I'll show you how you make the picture the whole slide. I mean, you could obviously sit there and faff about and try and pull them out to the side and all that sort of nonsense, but instead you can go back into the design bit. We don't want a solid color fill, we want a picture fill, right? Then either if you've got something on your clipboard, if you've copied something, clipboard will allow you to do that, or you can go straight online and get something, or go into your files, right? And I'm clicking on him, and there he is, right? So I found that a nice way to insert images if you want the image to be the key thing. Inserting shapes are good, you know, if you want a word you're going to use to stand out or something, you maybe want to put in a wee shape like that, and you want to change the colour of it maybe like that or whatever. Let's go on to our slide with Alexander and we'll make him say something, right? So we can, even on a slide like this, which has an image on the background, you can insert a shape over the top of that. So what you'll have noticed me doing, for example, quite often, just because it's a bit fun, is to stick a wee speech bubble on people and pretend they're saying stuff. So here's Alexander. And again, you can change the colour of that, the fill of it. So, I don't know, should we make it the same colour as our other slides? Why not? There we are. And you can have him saying, hi, I'm Alex, I can't spell Alexander. I think that's how you spell it. Okay. And again, just like on the normal slides, you can fiddle about with the font of that, the size of it to fit better your thing, and the colour of it. Again, I think a darker colour is nice there. So you can see how that can work. Maybe we want what he's saying to come in after him. Maybe we want to talk about him and then we want to have his little speech bubble come up. And if we want to do that, we want to use animations. So animations, there we are. So you can have it just appear, or you could have it fade in, you could have it fly in from the side. So let's just have it fade in. Well, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed exploring with me how you might apply semiotics to some of the presentation aspects of your assignment. You've shown yourselves to be original and independent thinkers in class and in your blogs. So I'm really looking forward to what I'm going to see and hear from you in this assignment. All the very best with it.